Back on NFL Daily, getting ready for a segment that I thought we were going to use after like a 15 to 20 minute recap of a boring game. I was watching the game first half with Daniel Jeremiah, and he's like, this game is a snoozer. And then, somewhere around the mid-second quarter, it just all went crazy. That's the great thing about the NFL. Like, these games are long. They can change so many different times, and my conception of this show changed. So the idea, Shook, it's simple. What teams can we imagine in the Super Bowl? The way that this season has gone, it really seems to have opened up the canopy to more teams. And since the Steelers are who inspired me, I'll start with them. Can you imagine this team in the Super Bowl?
They weren't on my list before this game, and they're still not on my list. And I feel very vindicated. I feel like my take is pretty justified here because I am concerned about their defense, and I feel as though they've played a relatively soft schedule. It was funny, they threw up a graphic during the game, and it showed the AFC North, and it was 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, and then the Browns at the bottom 0-3. And I'm like, well, they all beat the Browns. Like, they haven't even played any division games yet. This is only the Steelers' second division game. They haven't been tested yet. I need to see them tested legitimately before I can put them in there. Yes, 4-1 was great. 4-2 doesn't look as strong after this loss. I have questions about them, but if you win the division, you're in the playoffs and you're in the race. But right now, I'm not seeing them in the Super Bowl.
Okay, and it's just can. We're not saying likely. We're just like, would we be totally shocked? All right, we won't put the Steelers down. I gotta say, coming into tonight, I was falling for what had been a relatively easy schedule, but thinking about tonight, it's a short week on the road. The Browns deserve a little bit of an assist here that they had the Steelers defense somehow on the field for 80 plays last week. That fourth quarter took forever.
Some of the starters were out in the late stages, but yeah.
Yeah, but like I saw Patrick Queen, if you count the penalties, was on the field for 82 snaps last week. Like, there were some of the Steelers that were out there for a ton of snaps. Anyways, I shouldn't move so far off my priors. Can I really see Aaron Rodgers winning 3 playoff games or getting a bye? Like, no. I can't. So let's stay in the division. Are the Bengals a team that you think can make the Super Bowl? Now, in this scenario, Flacco would have to keep it afloat long enough for Joe Burrow to make it happen.
I'm going to say no as well. Just because Burrow's return is going to be so late in the season. You think about rest versus rust. Well, it's rehab versus rust. And I'm just, as good as he is, and he's fantastic, it just diminishes my belief in them.
Well, here's the thing. Joe Flacco didn't fix the defense. I know they didn't have Trey Hendrickson tonight. Should have mentioned that right at the top. That's amazing to get a win without Trey Hendrickson, but he's not going to solve everything. It's a bad defense. It's not great in terms of their kicking game on special teams. They're giving up like long kick returns all the time. I agree. I don't think they can make the Super Bowl, but the fact that Joe Burrow, is their quarterback, it's tough to cross them out. The Browns are obviously a cross out. They can't even make the playoffs. And then the Ravens are the other team in this division. I think they can still make the Super Bowl.
I divided my teams into sections. I have 5 teams that I definitely believe can make the Super Bowl. I have one where I just need to prove
in
it.
In the AFC.
No, this is overall.
This is just make it, man. You got to open up.
I'm a hater. And I have a chunk of teams. I have a chunk of teams that I just have a thing or two that need to be answered. And the Ravens, for me, just need to get healthy. If they get healthy, they can turn everything around. So I could see them in the Super Bowl. They're just not there right now.
Then they're written down. This is supposed to be a Big Ten exercise. And I'm thinking about the seasons back in the day, like when the Packers made it as a 6 seed, when the Cardinals made it after losing 2 games by like 30 points in December. We used to have more seasons, or at least there was a little stretch there where you'd see some lower seeded, surprising teams.
The Giants?
Yeah, the Giants twice making it without having good... Like, it feels like one of those sort of seasons. So keep that in mind. Okay, we're writing down the Ravens. Man, AFC North teams are not going to be happy that we wrote down the Ravens and not the Steelers or the Bengals. All right, AFC East, can you see the Patriots in the Super Bowl?
Not at this point, but I love their trajectory. And God, what a story it would be if Mike Vrabel got into the Super Bowl in year 1. Drake May,
how about
Gregg,
like the 2001 Patriots? There's no more unlikely team than that to make the Super Bowl.
But they had a great defense. I mean, all I can say is Drake May he's in my top 10 in QB index. He continues to rise. I think he's up to number 7 right now. And if he stays on this path, like, they're in the conversation for almost anything. It's just at this point right now, I can't envision them there just yet.
Can you win a division and you have a home game? You got a chance.
Yeah.
All right, we're not going to write down the Patriots just because I don't want to jinx anything. The Bills, I think, are an obvious yes, despite how rough they are, like right now on defense. We're talking projection. You got to imagine it's a long season, Shook. There is a scenario where the Buffalo Bills make the Super Bowl. Come on.
You could have said that over the last 5 years too. I just think they're frauds, personally. I don't know if they're going to fix their defense. I know they're missing a couple of guys, but if like
it's can. Come on, come with me.
Okay, all right. So I'm not putting my life.
You're
on the
a hater.
Line. They're frauds. Okay, I'll say both. They can, but they're not going to.
Well, of course, only one team from each conference are going to. The idea of this exercise, like who has a legitimate chance. Obviously, we're crossing out the Dolphins and the Jets. We don't need to discuss that.
Nope.
Let's go to the South, where we cross out the Titans for sure. Between the Texans, Jaguars, and the Colts, how many teams do you think can make the Super Bowl? I want you to expand your list of 5 teams in the NFL, because to me, it's like 10 to 12. Come on, meet me in the middle.
Okay, all right, I will. I'll
At
meet
least,
you.
maybe 15.
Two of those three can.
Okay.
I want to find cracks in the Colts, and I just can't so far. And until they show me that they have cracks in them, I'm going to continue to say, yeah, they have a shot. I have some concerns about their defense. I think they need to go get another corner. But as they're playing right now, they're looking like one of the best teams in the NFL.
Okay. Who was the other one then?
It's going to surprise you. It's the Houston Texans. Because
I can see it.
Defense travels, and CJ Stroud's had a couple of really great games. And I know you have to consider the opponent, but if they can continue this momentum that they've built, because they look a little more organized offensively, and the offensive line has been playing better, and if they get Joe Mixon back eventually, that would be a nice little boost for them as well. Then I can see them putting it together, because that defense is good, and that defense will travel.
Jaguars are a tougher case. I agree with you on everything you said for both of those. And I think the thing to remember, fans, the NFL season is so long. These teams are going to change identities. Many of the teams we just talked about are going to look completely different for completely different reasons of strengths and weaknesses than we think in 6 weeks. And then they'll change again in 4 weeks. But who has like enough to either get them in position and then ultimately the talent at the end of the day? That's why I don't mind crossing off the Bengals, because ultimately I think their defensive problems are personnel, and they just will never be able to get over that. I don't think it's crazy to write down the Jags. They got a lot. They got a lot of potential aspects to their team that could come together overall. I like the coaching. I like the running game. I certainly have doubts about Trevor Lawrence. I've seen crazier quarterbacks make it to a Super Bowl, but I'm writing them down. Sorry. Going to the West. Going to the West. The Chiefs are an obvious yes. I know they're 3-3, but yeah, what are we talking about here? The Raiders are an obvious cross out, so that leaves the Broncos and the Chargers. Can either of those teams make the Super Bowl?
The Chargers are only going to be able to get one of their tackles back, but it would be a big boost for them. They've lost 2 running backs. Might be
this week. Joe Alt is practicing as we're taping. Both Khalil Mack and Joe Alt have a chance. They're playing on Thursday Night Football. I tried to get some intel, and it seems like Mack is maybe more likely to play this week than Alt, especially with the Thursday night game coming up for the Chargers. But that's good that both of them might be back on the field soon.
I hope he's wearing a giant elbow brace too, because I thought that might have been a season ender when he suffered that injury. So that's great news. I think that they are going to have to continue to try to manage this running back situation until they get Hampton back. But they have enough talent at receiver, and I think overall, like, the culture is taking effect. It's just that right now they're like grinding out games because this is all they can do offensively. So yes, I could see them getting there.
And I'm going to say yes for the Broncos too, because again, even though I wasn't that high on the Broncos coming into the year, I have a little bit of doubt about Bo Nix. Been a long week. I just think they have enough that if everything came together, they fit my criteria here. Great defensive line, obviously. Very good defense overall. A very good offensive line. Great play caller. And my point is, I'm making a Big Ten. I really think a lot of teams have a chance this year. Doesn't mean we won't be watching the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Like, that could happen, but I just think more teams than before in the last handful of years where it's been dominated in the AFC by these quarterbacks with enough backing behind them. I just think there's more teams this year. So in the AFC, I've written down the Chargers, Broncos, Bills, Ravens, Chiefs, Colts, Texans, and Jags. That's a lot of AFC teams. I love it. There's 8. And yeah, Patriots fans, Steelers fans, Bengals fans, they're not going to be happy that we didn't leave them out. Okay, that we left them out. Okay, let's go to the NFC quickly. NFC, obviously, the Giants, it's hard to imagine. Cowboys, I love Dak, but it's hard to imagine. Do you think the Commanders and the Eagles could make it?
The Eagles could definitely make it if they could figure out their own drama. Like, it feels like the junior high lunch table with this team right now, but they are talented enough. The losses on defense are more glaring than I thought they would be, but ultimately, I still think if they get healthy, they're going to make a run and they'll be there, or they'll have a chance to be there. Commanders, Jaden Daniels is back, and as long as he's back, I have a lot of belief in them, and get Terry McLaurin back, they're going to be in a pretty good spot. That defense is old and kind of slow and not very resilient, but when you got Jaden Daniels, you always have a shot. So I could see both of them making a run.
Yeah, the criteria in the NFC is different. It's interesting because it's not top heavy, but I don't think you're going to sneak through the NFC playoffs.
No,
I think
4 of my 5 teams were NFC teams.
Yeah. So the Commanders are a tough one for me because I like a lot of the things that they've done. I'll write them down, though. I think we should qualify this as, this is how big a tent I want, Shook.
A circus tent.
If the actual Super Bowl winner or participants, because it's just making the Super Bowl, if it does not include, if the Super Bowl includes a team that we did not list tonight, we should have to get our nipples pierced. I'm not going to do that.
I'll put one on the line.
But that's the type of Big Ten I'm asking for. It's just a possibility. Like, would you really put your nipples on the line saying that the Bengals wouldn't make the Super Bowl? I might be afraid of Joe Burrow. You never know. Let's go to the NFC.
There's not a lot of real estate to work with
North. I'm ready to cross off the Bears, even though they're having a good season. I just think if they won a playoff game, that'd be unreal. I just can't imagine them winning 3. I kind of doubt you disagree there. So let's go to the other 3 teams. Packers seem like an obvious yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that leaves, the Vikings and the Lions. The Lions feel like an obvious yes. What do you think about the Vikings?
Yeah, Lions are an obvious yes. I feel like we don't know who the Vikings are because they haven't had their quarterback since the start of the season. And yes, he's essentially a pseudo rookie, like a rookie by default. But until they get JJ McCarthy back, that's when we start to really evaluate. I think that they've gotten better than they were last year. And obviously the record doesn't show it, but there is a lot of potential lurking beneath the surface that could come through in the second half of the season.
You want to write down the Vikings?
Yes.
Okay, I'll go along with you because I'd like for them to get more in the mix. It's a little hard for me to imagine with the way their quarterback play is right now, but I certainly would have said the same on the day that Carson Wentz went out for the season for the 11-2 Eagles back in 2017. In fact, I did say it on the Around, and I think we all talked about it on the Around the NFL podcast. And a handful of weeks later, Nick Foles outdueled Tom Brady in one of the Tom Brady's best performances in the Super Bowl. So they could round into form at quarterback eventually, and then they have a lot of other stuff. I agree. In the NFC South, it's a bridge too far, obviously, for the Saints and the Panthers. Sorry, Panthers fans. If you guys get a 7 seed, throw a parade. But we're talking about the Super Bowl. Can the Falcons make it? I think we'd both agree the Bucs are an obvious yes that they could make the Super Bowl.
I don't think the Falcons can make it, but I think they're on the right path because they've competed with some of the tougher teams that they've faced so far. I feel like this is a team that maybe runs out of gas because they're a little too one-dimensional. But I love where they are from last year this year. They're on a great path.
I've seen crazier Super Bowl teams than the Falcons, but I will go back to what I just said about the NFC. I don't think anyone's slipping through there. So if you put the Falcons in the AFC, I give them a fighting chance to get to the conference championship at least, or something crazy. I do think that defense has going to have to show that it can be this good all season. It sometimes a team that's so well schemed up, teams catch up with them. We'll see. The Vikings have been scheming it up for a couple of years. Definitely writing down the Bucs. It's obvious that they're contenders this year. And then how many teams are you going with out of the West? The Cardinals are, to me, an obvious no. And so who are you saying a yes to for the other 3 teams?
Seattle Seahawks are the first one on my list. They just look like a closer thing to a complete team. I would also like to put the Rams on that list. I think it's going to be more challenging for them. I am not going to put the 49ers on the list because despite them getting to this point with all these injuries that they've suffered and Kyle Shanahan's ability to squeeze the most juice out of that fruit, I just think it's going to be too much to overcome.
Totally agree. If Nick Bosa and Fred Warner were healthy, obviously they're in the mix. I think Kyle Shanahan could be a problem for a lot of teams, including the Falcons this weekend, and find his way to playing for the NFC West title in week 18 or something. Like that's on the table, a 4 seed or a 6 seed. I just don't think you're going to be able to make the Super Bowl without those horses. And I think the Seahawks and Rams, to me, are pretty obvious because I think the upside for both teams are sky high. So in the NFC, we wound up going with the Packers, Lions, Eagles, Commanders, Vikings, Bucks, Seahawks, and Rams, which means we went with 8 teams in the NFC and 8 teams in the AFC. Is that right?
That's too many.
It's not. That's the point, and that's the headline. 16 teams that can make the Super Bowl in Santa Clara. I don't think that's a crazy take. On a night where Joe Flacco showed us anything is possible, Shookie, we did it. You killed it. As always, love doing shows with you. We're going to be doing them in primetime all season long. The next time you will hear me, it will be with Cynthia Freeland from the podcast studio, and we will be doing our Week 7 picks. The train keeps on rolling. We will see you then.